If you're hunting for horror games that don't just scare you for a second, but stay in your head long after you turn the console off, this list is for you. Not jump scare spam, real, uncomfortable, sleep-ruining horror. Here are 16 horror games you can play right now that deliver pure dread. Let's get into it. Starting things off with Layers of Fear, the 2023 reimagining that merges the entire series into one disturbing psychological experience. This is first-person horror focused entirely on obsession, guilt, and a mind slowly falling apart. You explore a Victorian mansion that constantly reshapes itself around you. Rooms change when you turn away, hallways stretch unnaturally, and familiar spaces become unfamiliar in seconds. There are no traditional enemies here. The house itself is the threat, warping reality to reflect the artist's descent into madness. What makes Layers of Fear effective is how subtle and unsettling it is. Paintings shift, objects move when you're not looking, and the game messes with your sense of space and time. It's not about jump scares, it's about sustained discomfort that keeps you on edge. Built in Unreal Engine 5, the visuals are incredibly detailed. Lighting, shadows, and environmental storytelling do a lot of the heavy lifting, with notes and objects slowly revealing the tragic story behind the madness. It also includes all previous storylines and DLC, letting you experience multiple perspectives on creative obsession and its consequences. If you prefer slow-burn psychological horror that crawls into your head instead of chasing you down hallways, Layers of Fear is a strong way to start this list. Next up is Outlast Trials, a multiplayer horror game that proves fear doesn't disappear just because you're not alone. Set during the Cold War, you're a test subject for the Murkoff Corporation, forced into twisted psychological experiments disguised as science. This time, the game supports 1 to 4 players. You can go in solo or with friends, but you're still completely defenseless. No weapons, just a night vision camera and pure survival instincts. Every trial drops you into disturbing facilities where you're hunted by broken, violent reagents who coordinate, trap, and chase relentlessly. The multiplayer dynamic adds a different kind of tension. Friends can help you survive, but they can also slow you down. When someone gets grabbed, you're forced to choose between saving them or completing the objective, and that pressure is brutal. There's progression between runs with gadgets and upgrades, but you're never powerful. You're always fragile, always hunted. Outlast Trials turns cooperative play into shared panic, and screaming with friends somehow makes it even worse. Directed by Shinji Mikami, the creator of Resident Evil, this is survival horror at its most unforgiving. It's the kind of game that doesn't guide you, doesn't comfort you, and absolutely doesn't care if you're struggling. You play as Detective Sebastian Castellanos, called to investigate a massacre at a mental hospital. Almost immediately, reality collapses, and you're dragged into a shared nightmare where twisted minds shape the world itself. The creatures you face aren't random monsters, they're manifestations of trauma, obsession, and madness. What really makes this experience terrifying is how limited you are. Ammo is painfully scarce, healing items are rare, and enemies can soak up damage. Every encounter forces a choice: fight, sneak, or run, and more often than not, running is the only smart option. Enemy design keeps you constantly on edge. Some stalk you when you're not looking, others regenerate endlessly, and each one demands a different strategy. You're never allowed to feel comfortable. With its oppressive atmosphere, disturbing imagery, and brutal difficulty, The Evil Within is old-school survival horror in the purest sense. If you miss games where surviving feels earned, not guaranteed, this one still delivers. Often called the true spiritual successor to PT, Visage is psychological horror at its most relentless. This first-person experience takes place inside a single house, but that house becomes one of the most terrifying locations in gaming. You're exploring a home where multiple families met horrific ends. As you move through its halls, you relive their final moments, their trauma, their breakdowns, their deaths. The house remembers everything, and it slowly turns that suffering against you. What makes Visage so disturbing is its sanity system combined with complete helplessness. You have no weapons and no way to fight back, only pills to slow your mind from collapsing. Stay in the dark too long and reality begins to break. Doors lock, lights fail, and things appear that may not even be real. The horror is constant and unpredictable. Lights flicker, objects move, doors slam shut behind you. You'll hear breathing in empty rooms and footsteps following you when no one should be there. Each chapter tells a tragic, merciless story. Visage doesn't rely on jump scares, it gets under your skin and stays there. It's the kind of game that makes you uneasy in your own house long after you stop playing. This one hits right in the childhood fear zone. You play as Mono, a small, fragile kid trying to survive a world that feels aggressively hostile, with 6 from the first game by your side. That world is the Pale City, and it absolutely hates you. What makes Little Nightmares 2 so effective is how it uses scale and perspective. You're tiny, powerless, and everything around you is built for monstrous adults. Doors are too high, furniture feels enormous, and the people you encounter are twisted giants that move in deeply unsettling ways. The enemies are pure nightmare fuel. There's a hunter stalking you through the woods with a shotgun, a teacher whose neck stretches across rooms to grab you, and the Thin Man, a glitching figure that feels like a corrupted TV signal made flesh. These aren't just monsters, they're warped versions of adult authority seen through a child's fear. Puzzle solving is where the tension spikes. You're trying to think clearly while something is actively hunting you. The sound design makes it worse. Every creak, footstep, and static buzz keeps you on edge. Each area feels distinct and disturbing, and that ending, without spoiling anything, it's genuinely haunting. This isn't cute horror. It's quiet, oppressive, and deeply unsettling. Easily one of the most memorable horror experiences on PS5. Death isn't a punishment here. It's part of the design. That idea defines Returnal, a game that blends relentless action with deeply unsettling psychological horror. You play as Celine, a space explorer who crash lands on the alien planet Atropos and quickly realizes she's trapped in a time loop. Every death resets the world, but not your memories. You start finding audio logs recorded by yourself, warning you about dangers you don't remember facing, and even your own corpse lying where you died before. The horror isn't traditional. Atropos whispers to you in an alien language you somehow understand. The environment subtly changes between loops. And most disturbing of all, Celine's childhood home appears on this alien planet, a perfectly normal suburban house that absolutely shouldn't exist here. Inside, you uncover fragments of a traumatic past, guilt, loss, and a tragedy that refuses to stay buried. The game constantly makes you question what's real. Is Celine trapped on an alien world or trapped inside her own mind? With fast, punishing, bullet hell combat, oppressive sound design, and a story revealed through failure, Returnal turns repetition into dread and transforms every death into psychological pressure that never fully lets go. You're not here to fight, you're here to survive. That's the core terror of Alien Isolation, a game built entirely around fear, patience, and panic. You play as Amanda Ripley, trapped aboard the decaying Sevastopol space station, while a single xenomorph hunts you relentlessly. And this isn't a scripted monster. The alien learns. Hide in lockers too often, and it starts checking them. Rely on the same routes, and it adapts. Every mistake teaches it how to kill you better. Your motion tracker becomes both a lifeline and a curse. It tells you where the alien is, but the sound can give you away. You'll crouch in lockers watching its legs pass inches from your face, holding your breath in real life. There are no safe zones, no power fantasy, and death is brutal thanks to limited manual saves. With its oppressive atmosphere, perfect sound design, and unmatched enemy AI, Alien Isolation delivers pure, nerve-shredding horror that never lets you relax, not even for a second. Space is supposed to be empty, silent, safe. That illusion shatters fast in Dead Space Remake, a ground-up reimagining that turns isolation into pure terror. You step into the boots of Isaac Clarke, an engineer answering a distress call aboard the USG Ishimura. The ship is dead. Its crew has been transformed into necromorphs, grotesque, screaming abominations born from an alien artifact, and you're trapped inside with them. What makes the horror unforgettable is how you fight back. Headshots don't matter here. Survival means cutting off limbs while monsters charge, crawl on walls, or burst out of vents. Every encounter feels desperate, amplified by brutal sound design and haptic feedback that makes each plasma cutter shot feel sickeningly real. The Ishimura is now fully seamless, with no loading screens, so the dread never resets. Isaac finally speaks, and hearing his panic makes the nightmare feel personal. Add in zero-gravity sections that destroy your sense of direction, and audio cues that keep you constantly on edge. Dead Space Remake isn't just scary, it's relentless, oppressive, and methodical. A masterclass in sci-fi survival horror that proves fear doesn't age, it evolves. What starts like a dark fairy tale quickly turns into something far more disturbing in Resident Evil Village. This entry leans into gothic horror and twisted folklore, creating an experience that constantly keeps you on edge. You play as Ethan Winters, searching for his kidnapped daughter in a remote Eastern European village ruled by Mother Miranda and her 4 lords. Each area feels completely different, which is what makes the horror so effective. You never settle into one rhythm for too long. Castle Dimitrescu delivers classic stalker horror, with Lady Dimitrescu relentlessly hunting you through narrow halls where one wrong turn can be fatal. But the moment everyone remembers is House Beneviento. You're stripped of weapons, left helpless in the dark, and stalked by one of the most disturbing creatures Resident Evil has ever created. No combat, no escape plan, just panic. Even when the game shifts toward action, ammo scarcity and aggressive enemies keep the tension high. Village proves that Resident Evil can evolve without losing its ability to genuinely scare you. Fear in The Last of Us Part 2 doesn't come from dark corridors alone. It comes from knowing you're never in control. Set years after the original, the game drops you into a ruined Seattle where every encounter feels unpredictable and brutal. The infected are faster, smarter, and more aggressive, from clickers that punish the slightest noise to shamblers that flood tight spaces with toxic gas. Then there's the Rat King, a nightmarish fusion of infected that hunts you through pitch-black hospital corridors, refusing to die and forcing pure survival panic. But the most unsettling horror comes from humans. Enemies communicate, flank you, cry out their friends' names when they die, and hunt you with dogs. Stealth becomes nerve-wracking, not empowering. Every fight feels personal, messy, and uncomfortable. With oppressive sound design, realistic animations, and environments that constantly close in on you, the game creates dread without relying on cheap scares. The Last of Us Part 2 proves that sometimes the scariest horror isn't monsters, it's people, desperation, and the choices you're forced to make. There's a moment where action horror just clicks, and this is one of those games. Not long into the experience, Resident Evil 4 Remake makes it clear you're not dealing with mindless enemies. Leon Kennedy arrives in rural Spain to rescue the president's daughter, only to face villagers infected by Las Plagas. Intelligent, aggressive, and terrifyingly coordinated. They flank you, communicate, and overwhelm you when you hesitate. That opening village fight is still legendary. Boarded windows breaking, doors splintering, enemies pouring in from every angle while your ammo disappears fast. The tension never lets up. The remake amplifies everything. Tighter combat, smarter enemies, and some truly horrifying returns, like the Regenerators, whose breathing alone is enough to make you freeze. Every fight feels desperate. Every resource choice matters. It's action-forward, yes, but the fear is constant. Resident Evil 4 Remake proves you don't need to slow things down to be terrifying. There's a very specific kind of horror that crawls under your skin and stays there, and this game nails it. Set on a Scottish oil rig in 1975, Still Wakes the Deep traps you in the middle of the North Sea when a drill ruptures something ancient beneath the ocean floor. You play as Kaz McLeary, an electrician watching coworkers slowly transform into grotesque blends of flesh, bone, and machinery. It's pure The Thing energy, but in a claustrophobic metal structure that's literally falling apart around you. What makes it hit harder is the authenticity. The Scottish voice acting makes every character feel real, so when things go wrong, it's not just scary, it's upsetting. There's no combat at all. You climb, run, hide, and pray while something hunts you through collapsing corridors and swinging platforms. The body horror is disturbing, the sound design is suffocating, and the pacing never wastes a second. Still Wakes the Deep isn't loud horror, it's dread-soaked, human, and unforgettable.
This is horror that gets under your skin, instead of jumping out at you. Very quickly, Alan Wake 2 pulls you into two collapsing realities. Alan is trapped in the dark place, a nightmare world where stories rewrite reality, while FBI agent Saga Anderson investigates ritual murders in Bright Falls as everything starts falling apart. The deeper you go, the harder it is to tell what's real and what's been written into existence. The tone is slow, eerie, and deliberately unsettling, taking cues from Twin Peaks and psychological crime thrillers. One moment, you're solving crimes and piecing together clues. The next, you're running from living darkness or dropped into surreal sequences that feel like a bad dream you can't wake up from. Combat is tense and restrained. Ammo is scarce, enemies are aggressive, and light is your lifeline. Managing flashlight batteries becomes as stressful as managing bullets, and every encounter feels risky. What really elevates it is the storytelling. It explores obsession, identity, and the cost of creation in ways that feel genuinely disturbing. Alan Wake 2 isn't just scary, it's disorienting, thoughtful, and lingers in your head long after you stop playing.
Some horror sticks with you because it feels uncomfortably real. A world destroyed by a fungal infection, cities reclaimed by decay, and people slowly turning into something monstrous. You're escorting a teenage girl across this ruined America, and every encounter feels like it could be your last. Often considered one of the most intense survival horror experiences ever made, The Last of Us Part 1 turns tension into an art form. The infected are terrifying, especially clickers, blind creatures that hunt using echolocation. Hearing that clicking echo through dark hallways instantly puts you on edge, because one mistake means death. Certain sections are legendary. The hotel basement, submerged in darkness, forces you to move slowly while listening to enemies you can't see. The bloater encounter is pure panic, massive, aggressive, and overwhelming with limited resources. What elevates the horror is emotional investment. You care deeply about the characters, which makes every thread hit harder. It proves that grounded storytelling and atmosphere can be just as frightening as any supernatural nightmare.
Some horror isn't about monsters jumping at you. It's about being forced to confront things you'd rather keep buried. A letter from someone who should be dead pulls you into a fog-covered town that feels less like a place and more like a punishment. That's exactly what Silent Hill 2 Remake delivers. James Sunderland returns to Silent Hill after receiving a letter from his late wife, and from the moment you arrive, it's clear the town is reflecting his guilt, grief, and repressed trauma. Nothing here exists by accident. Every hallway, every sound, every enemy is personal. The creature design is deeply uncomfortable. Pyramid Head isn't a villain, he's judgment. The mannequins and abstract daddy represent themes so dark they're hard to even describe, let alone forget. Combat feels intentionally clumsy and desperate, reinforcing how vulnerable you are. What truly elevates the experience is the atmosphere. The sound design is oppressive, the silence is suffocating, and locations like the hospital and prison are almost unbearable to push through. Multiple endings quietly judge your actions, revealing different sides of James's psyche. This isn't just a scary game, it's psychological horror that lingers long after you stop playing. Silent Hill 2 Remake doesn't want to entertain you, it wants to haunt you.
Some horror games scare you once. This one keeps you stressed the entire time. When Raccoon City collapses overnight, two rookies walk straight into a nightmare that never lets up. That nightmare is Resident Evil 2 Remake. Leon Kennedy and Claire Redfield take shelter in the police station, only to realize it's a claustrophobic maze filled with undead, mutated horrors, and constant danger around every corner. What makes it terrifying is the pressure. Zombies don't stay down, ammo is always low, and tight corridors turn every encounter into a risk. You're constantly choosing between fighting, running, or praying nothing grabs you. And then there's Mr. X. You don't fight him, you hear him. Heavy footsteps echo through the station, getting closer, never stopping, forcing you to move even when you're not ready. Perfect pacing, oppressive atmosphere, and pure survival tension from start to finish, Resident Evil 2 Remake is survival horror done right.
And that wraps it up. 16 PS5 horror games that actually deliver real fear. From slow-burn psychological nightmares to pure survival panic, these games prove horror is alive and thriving on PS5. Now I want to know, which one scared you the most, and which horror game do you think should have been on this list? Drop it in the comments, hit like if you enjoy being terrified, and subscribe for more horror-focused content. Thanks for watching, and remember, some games don't end when you turn off the console.